So thank you for having me. Thank you, Orlando, for having me. This is a pleasure. There's only one thing wrong with the title of this day. I read this as Research Day, but I think it's a Research Party Day. When I was sitting in doing a Zoom call this morning, I could hear all this music going on. I'm thinking, what's going on here? And then I realized that it's not a research, it's just having party about the research. So I guess that's what it is. So I'm going to start off and tag on to what our previous speaker was talking about pesticides and agriculture and things of that nature. So my idea is that can we take plant-based materials and help in growing better food, better crops, and help in human health. So that's the main motif of this talk. And I've split it up, so anytime our MC sees that I'm going over, he can just raise his hand and I can stop it within 30 seconds because we have multiple stories, so I can just stop at any story there. So this is not my primary area of research, but I got very much interested when one of my colleagues came to me and said, I have this grant from the Gates Foundation. However, I'm leaving NC State, and would you like to take over the grant? Who is going to say no? I had no idea what this is about, but I said, we'll take it over. And so we had people involved who was helping us. I was just a small peon. But the idea was, can we improve food security in the world where there's a lot of insufficient food going on? Even in the US, about 13% of the US households are food insecure, means they don't get enough food for a day. If you look at this matrix, Canada is doing much better than the US. Most of the problem happens in sub-Saharan Africa. And what people are trying to do is saying, okay, so we got to increase food, the population is increasing, so we're going to put in more crops, and we're going to put in more pesticides and plant growth promoters. But what happens is that these actives are very 80% of them are lost. They get lost in the water, in the air, and so it's very inefficient. So it's like a vicious cycle going on in there. So I got involved in this project because there was a big issue in sub-Saharan Africa. So what was happening is in the eastern part of Africa, the main crops were potatoes, but they were being infected by insects within the soil. And in the western part, which is called the yam belt, yams were the main crops, and they were also infested with other kinds of insects. So how can we improve this, and how can we make it cheap, come up with a cheap solution? So that's where bioproducts come in. So it turns out that if you take banana trees and take a particular part of the banana tree, you can make paper out of it and then send it off. And before sending it off, you pregnate them or spray them with biopesticides. So we would ship them off, and the major cost of our project became the shipping costs from North Carolina to Africa and how to get rid of customs and so forth. But that was, so we would take them, we would go to Orlando's previous department, which had a machine to make 150 pounds or 300 pounds paper. We would make them and send it off to Africa. And these are some farmers here trying to cut yam and then wrap it, and they call it seedlings, and send it off there. So when they did that, these are some farmers doing it, and we did this for several years, maybe 4 years, 5 years, and we did about 200 trials in different parts of Africa covering 8 to 10 countries. And so the results were much better than we expected. It turned out that the yield over here, which is shown in blue or turquoise, goes up, and these are different regions in the different parts of Africa, by a substantial amount. The quality of the yams become better, and so there was a big push now, so we could go back to the funding agency and ask for a second and a third round because they were very happy. Of course, we had collaborators and graduate students and stuff working there as well. So it seemed like it was working well with yam. So we went to bananas then, and this is a field in Kenya. And so they would actually have very nicely tagged, very controlled fields. So one would be without pesticide, one with pesticides. And when we did that, what we found was that the yield of the potatoes were going up by a factor of 3 or more. And this was true no matter which year we did. It was at least a factor of 2. And over here in pink, you can see the number of insects are going down in the soil. We didn't know what was going on. We had absolutely no clue, which is fine. But we knew the results were working, and the funding agency was happy, so that was important. And then we eventually figured out what's going on, but that's not part of today's talk because we don't have time for it. But this was working really well. So this was going well. So I thought, okay, so I got really interested in this area, and this became an area for my research then. So we then started looking at foliar problems. So if you look at a banana tree or a rose tree, you will see a lot of these black specks, which are fungus. And even in Canada, in 2024, there was some issues with strawberry fungus. So the idea here is that can we come up with some ideas to make this fungus go away? Because what happens is every year, you come in and you spray these trees with drones or airplanes, and even 80% is washed off in the soil or ground, water. So we decided we're going to make particles, and we're going to use cellulose-based particles for it. So the particles we made is a whole range, so we can have different morphologies, we can have different sizes, and so forth. And these are not cellulose, but cellulose acetate, which is food grade, so it's biodegradable within 2 years, which is what the European community wants. The US was not caught up yet on that. So we made these particles. So one of the issues then is, does it work? Does it stick to leaves? And how fast does it spread on leaves? So we did some studies where we took some banana, this is for banana plant, and we see how it's spreading, so we can get what's called a spreading coefficient, and it's actually better than water. We can add surfactants if we want. That's where some of these T's come up. And then we said, okay, that's fine, but the other issue is that when you spray it, and if it rains, and many of these are grown in South America, it washes off, so can we make it stick in rain? So our group came up with the simulated rainfall. So the first experiments we did was with silicon wafer. And then we did various types of leaves to see how much stays after this simulated rainfall. And we did confocal imaging to do before and after. And we see that 60 to 80% of these stay. So actually, this was funded by a company. And so the company had a European part. And this European director was visiting me. And all of a sudden, he says, Saad, how many gallons can you make of this? And then how much do I pay you? Can I pay you 200,000, 300,000? And then the company, who is the US based, said, this is not how we operate in America. You can't ask him to do all this stuff. So anyway, there goes my $300,000. And then he moved into something else, and the company also decided not to fund me anymore. So I just lost an immediate chunk of $300,000, but that's life. So with that then, so we decided, okay, we will do something else. So these particles are cellulose acetate-based particles. So my students said, we can make Pickering emulsions. So the Pickering emulsions are oil in water emulsions, stabilized, but would be stabilized with the same particles. And I told my student this is a terrible idea because the particles are non-uniform, it agglomerates. And he said, give me 2 months, 3 months, let's try it out. And she was right, I was wrong. And she actually ended up graduating with 2 papers in that area. And the third one actually we're working on. So we make these Pickering emulsions, and the idea here is now companies want biologics in addition to agrochemicals. And whenever they try to put both of them together, the biologics die. So we try to put both agrochemicals and biologics in the same Pickering emulsion. And these are just to show you how the Pickering emulsions look like, and very nice images and stuff. And so then we said, okay, does this agrochemical release? And it does release, but it releases very, very slowly. So we actually said, okay, is it going to work? So we have these C. elegans, which are worms, which are sensitive to these agrochemicals, and we see that actually is bioavailable. So it actually works, but you need less of it. So that's a good thing. The other thing is we said, okay, do these plant growth promoting microbes work? And the green is saying it's surviving. So it is surviving. So it's surviving. We don't know how it's surviving, but it is surviving, which was a surprise. So I got my bio people, so my colleagues from the bio area is now involved trying to figure out what's going on. And we actually did some stuff to show that actually the control without the Pickering emulsion dies, but with the Pickering emulsion, the microbes survive and is working. So we are working with some companies and stuff like that to see what's going on with this area. So what I have presented to you are snippets of a few things, all related to how we can improve plants and how you can improve crop and eventually improve food. And so the idea here is this plants or plant-derived materials helping plants grow. And basically, all of them have cellulose or lignin or a combination of those included in it. And so I'd be happy to answer any questions. I kept it very high level. I don't know if there's time for questions, but I'd be happy to take any questions. And thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Thank you very much.